Welcome back, Ray. An interesting 48 hours, 72 hours perhaps, in
Yeah,
Hurricanes hockey. How are you feeling? Because it's, you could feel up, you could feel down, you could feel just kind of in the middle.
we've kind of been through the ringer on this one. Very, very strange. Last broadcast we had a chance to talk about, the importance of winning the games in hand that you have, especially against the teams that are ahead of you in the standings. And so that brought the Rangers game into focus. Canes taking on the Rangers Friday night. Tough contest, a strong club, 2 points ahead of us with four, but we've got 4 games in hand. So let's get that victory and move on, right? And that's
Nice.
exactly what they did. 5-1, they were in the lead and played a great game to charge out to that lead. Third period, Rangers came back and they weren't going away. You and I and pretty much every fan in the league knows that the Rangers aren't a team to fold, and they've got a lot of firepower on their squad. They can put the puck in the net, no questions. And they gave up 2 goals in the third, making it 5-3, closer game. And then Rod, being the great coach that he is, wisely takes the timeout that he needed to kind of uh, prevent the momentum and generate a little momentum for his own guys. And, about 2 minutes after the timeout, the Hurricanes started having the balance of the play again. And that's what you need, that hard reset to, get things going, derail your opponent if you can. And Anderson made some great saves. The boys came up big, and we got a big win that put us on top of the Met. And
For a
then
day.
for a day, yeah, because then we come into a game against the Devils. Now, uh, you and I have said, and I'm one of the staunch supporters of, win all of the games that you can win. If you are the better team on paper, those are games that you just cannot let get away. And so the Devils game was one that I expected a victory out of. I wanted a win, and we're in a situation where Rod Brindamore has a very unique situation where we're looking at goaltending issues, and we've got a young man, LaFontaine, who is needs an assessment, needs a better assessment than what he had when he filled in the 6-0 rout loss to Columbus Blue Jackets. He needed to have a real assessment. And so he gets the start against the Devils, what you might say is a safe opportunity, right? Safe for the young man to get in there, get between the pipes, and get a taste of NHL hockey. And you know what? The Devils can bring it. They got some solid players as well. The problem with this one is that LaFontaine was there at the start. The Canes were there for the first 5 minutes to get out to that 2-0 lead. And then they just evaporated in front of him. And that was really the struggle in all of this. So if you want to try to make an assessment of LaFontaine, it's hard to do when the team that plays in front of you is not the Carolina Hurricanes that we're used to. And of the 7 goals that he allowed in the 7-4 loss, 5 were right in the prime scoring places. There were deflections, there were just grade A opportunities that the defense doesn't allow. You keep your shots to the outside, right? But these were all grade A opportunities. And you can't have a defense like that. So I think it's really tough to make an assessment on LaFontaine on this one. It really is.
100%. So I agree with you fully. It's a lot of people on social media very worried, why isn't Ronta in net? And he's back from injury, but I don't know that he's 100%. I mean, I haven't seen that. I mean, you can be back and not be ready to go. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
That being said, I think there's I had two things that I put out there earlier today. One is LaFontaine left his Golden Gophers mid-season, very unusual move.
Yep.
I feel like Rod kind of, might have been like hey, we're going to give this kid a chance to play. He's going to get an NHL game because there's no guarantee that he's going to go to the HL, that he's coming back. And that's not meant to be anything about LaFontaine. That's just a reality of the way that hockey works, right? There are no guarantees. This might be the only game he ever plays. He might be back in a season or two and be the starting goalie for the Canes. Could go either way.
Who's to say?
Exactly. And last night was not a judge of that.
No.
There are no throwaway games in the NHL. Every point is special. But last night's game was as close to a throwaway, as close to it's fine to lose this one as you're going to find, right?
Yeah.
You get the 2 points against the Metro, division opponent, one of the only teams who's right there with you in the Metro. You get both points out of that one. That's a big deal. RDU closes down because a plane slid off the runway. So you don't get your flight into New Jersey until the morning of the game. So that throws your schedule off, right? These guys are kind of victims of and creatures of habit, as many of us are.
Habit. Perfect.
So then you get into the game, and the Devils aren't the worst team in the Metro, but they're not great, right? No. Goaltending is not something that I didn't look at the sheet and go, Gillis, is he gonna be an all-star? No, I'm not looking at that going, okay, this is a guy we can't put pucks past. I think we can put pucks in the net, which they did.
Yeah, they did.
So why not give the kid a try? Let him get a taste. Let Rod say, okay, what do we have to work with, right? So as I think the Ranger game, 2 for 2 on the power play.
Yes,
that was huge. They got out hit quite a bit. They won faceoffs. I mean, scoring was beautiful, right? It's all over. It's Trocheck, Jarvis, Fast, Aho, Niederreiter, and then D'Angelo.
Yeah.
And then going into last night, of course, we started out great. Like Svechnikov, that was a beauty of a goal.
It was. Most of his are beauties, aren't they? Let's just say
that he tends to. Yeah, it's a beauty, or it hits like a pipe, and it's not a goal at all, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There's not a lot of in between with him. It's Cole makes it 2-0, and then New Jersey comes back, and then Levo gets his goal. Then Michael McLeod for New Jersey, Johnson, and then it kind of falls off the rails. To back up half a step, LaFontaine was responsible for, in my opinion, at most 3 of those goals, maybe 4.
Yeah.
The defense gave up, like you said, those prime shooting areas. That's a defensive lapse. LaFontaine is not at a level. Maybe Freddie Anderson stopped some of those shots because that guy's a proven NHL goalie. If you watch, especially the first, I think it was the first New Jersey goal, might have been the second. They got that goal based upon sustained offensive zone pressure.
Yeah.
And you could see when the puck, especially when it was going behind the net, LaFontaine looked a little slow. He looked like a college keeper in a pro game, right? The pace of the game, he was, I think, struggling to keep up with the pace of play. So when they had sustained pressure, he's half a step behind and just can't recover. And that's an age thing. He's a kid.
Yeah, that half a step is so important. You look in all athletes, they describe when they are at the best, when they are at their best, everything slows down. Everything slows down. They can assess and figure out what they need to do, where they need to be. Everything is just slows down. And there were times where you could see it was just the game might have been a little bit quicker than what he was expecting. And certainly when the D hangs him out to dry like they did, and Brady Shea said as much after the game, we kind of hung him out to dry there a couple of times. Coach Brindamore himself pointed out there was maybe 2 guys on the team that played a good game, not 20. And that's what he expects. He expects 20 people to show up and do their job, right? And that's just not, I mean, you can't hang it on them. It's a tough lesson to learn. Goaltending in the NHL has to be one of the most difficult and lonely positions in sport. And I say lonely because of some of the comments that you see after the fact in this one, where people come down on
Yeah.
him and say, LaFontaine stinks and blah, blah, blah. Like some of the comments have been just,
Straight up
uh,
saw, I hope we never see this guy again.
yeah,
And I didn't
unreasonable.
respond because I wanted to say he's a 24-year-old kid. And as
Yeah,
somebody approaching 50, I can call a 24-year-old a kid.
yeah, no question.
Goalies, we know goalies take longer to develop in general. And for most goalies, you're not sure if you have a hit until it happens, right?
Yep.
And even looking back to the other game that LaFontaine was in, he gave up 2 goals on 3 shots. And I had somebody kind of throw that at me like, oh, he gave up 2 goals on 3 shots.
Yeah, they
And
were
I'm like, but they were
breakaways.
2 breakaways. Like,
But
yeah, like half the goalies in the league will give up 2 goals on 3 shots if 2 of them are breakaways. Like,
yeah,
what
exactly.
is your point exactly? Like, that's
Yeah.
not an accurate. Like, did you watch the game?
You need to be fair. Certainly, when you're looking at assessing a goaltender, you don't assess them on one game or one in a third games, right? You get them, 3, 4, 5, 6 games or whatever to actually see what they're worth. And certainly you have to look at the team around them and how they played as well. If the Hurricanes play the way they normally do and he allows 7, then you got something to talk about. But look at that
Yeah,
D.
even that
Look at
wouldn't have
where they
worried me.
gave up the goals. Honestly, I'm sorry. This this was not this is not a game to assess the young man on. And
Yep.
you know,
And this is not even a stinker like the Columbus game
no.
because I think the Canes tried and just didn't it just didn't go against Columbus. And I
Yeah.
honestly feel like the Canes came into this game and Rod is like, look, we're gonna put the kid in net. Let's try and get a win, but don't get injured. And
Yeah.
if they get 2 points of us, we still have 4 games in hand,
Still.
and we're only 2 points behind the Rangers. It would be great to win a President's Trophy.
That's not
That's fantastic.
necessary.
It's not necessary. If we go in as the number one seed in the Metro, great. That's all I really want.
Yeah.
I want that and no injuries. That's what I want. You know?
Exactly. And again, why Ranta probably wasn't in net and so forth. You want to ease him back into play and so forth, especially when we're dealing with injuries. And let's face it, look around the league. When teams have goaltenders with either injury problems or COVID issues or whatever, and you're scrambling to put goaltenders in net, things can go off the rails fast. Yes, Edmonton Oilers, I'm talking about you, who got a win last night.
Stop the
And
7-game skitter. Yeah.
yeah, and Koskinen played fantastic, by the way. Made some humongous saves in the third period that he had no business making, but you could feel in the arena watching the game. Just to go off, topic, just for a second, you could feel where every save that he made, almost a sigh of relief from the crowd. Every time. There's a guy that's had it rough. You know what I mean? Like, yes,
Right.
he's allowed some stinkers, but he hadn't been getting a lot of bit of help. So let's set LaFontaine to the side. He gave what he could. He got a taste of NHL hockey. It is fast. It is quick. He'll get his feet under him, and we'll learn more about him as we go. But that's just one game in 82, and we got to move on. Moving
Yeah.
on to the next game. And
Exactly.
and that's, again, this kind of goes back to what we talked about in the last podcast, where you just turn the page. You remember what happened, but you turn the page and move on. And this is and so we're going to be moving on, and Canes are fine. So no one
Yeah. I'm
needs
not
to.
worried about it.
Let's not panic.
And speak just because you brought up Ronta again. Um, Bear has been a healthy scratch.
I've
I'm
seen
not
that.
sure Bear's 100%. Rod has said out there kind of publicly that when they're winning, he doesn't like to change things up, and
Yep.
that makes sense. Smith has gone from being somebody who I wanted behind Chatfield at a minimum to he's actually had a couple of really good games here in a row, so he's certainly filled in. I kind of hope we see Bear back in the next game. I think he gives us another dimension,
Yep.
another option out there on the power play for one, and then defensively, I think he's been overall pretty solid in his own net. So
He's
on his own
been
end.
he's been solid, and he pinches appropriately offensively. Like there's 2 or 3 times a game where he pinches and creates a really good opportunity for offense and so forth. So I'd like to see that back in. I have been looking for him. It was noticeable that he wasn't in the lineup, but you're right. When you have something, don't if it's not broke, don't fix it. That was kind of the
Absolutely.
situation and so forth. So um, hopefully we'll see him back in the lineup, and again, it's going to be a mix and match. Really, everything about the regular season, as far as coaching goes and stuff like that, you tinker with the lineup to see and get as much experience as to what goes where in what situation. You need to know all of that and get ready for the playoffs when it really matters. So that's where we'll leave that one, I think.
I think so. We're gonna have kind of a shorter broadcast than usual today, a shorter podcast. Ray here is had a couple medical things going on. He's recovering. I got a million things to do, but we did want to introduce a new short segment called the 2 Minute Minor.
All
So,
righty.
so here's my thought, Ray. You've been watching hockey since before I have,
Forever.
and I've been watching hockey a very long time. And one of the things that I see people do is they clearly understand the game, but they may not know terminology, right? They may not be
Hmm.
able to tell you the difference between an overload power play versus an umbrella, but they
Yeah.
still understand what the power play is trying to do, what it's trying to accomplish. So the idea I had was maybe every week or every other week we'll do a 2 minute minor and try to explain some facet of hockey that might initially sound complicated or that a lot of people don't use or understand. And we'll try and simplify it, make it easy so that, if it's something that if people then want to use it, great. If they just go, oh, well, now I understand what that is. And when people talk about it, I get kind of what they're talking about. And the one I wanted to start with is CORSI.
You picked a
So
great one. You picked a great one because you and I both have said there's never an opportunity where you can't learn something about the game. No matter how much experience you have, you can always be learning, always be growing, and all. And for me, like you said, oodles of years following the game and loving it and all the rest of it. Of course, I don't really have a grasp on. So it's an opportunity for me to learn right now. This is great. This is what we
beautiful.
want. Yeah, opportunity to learn. So let's have at her. Corsi.
Okay, I'm starting the clock. So CORSI is an advanced analytic, right? It's numbers crunching, and a lot of people use it to figure out who's either playing well or what teams are playing well because it sounds complicated when somebody says CORSI and they start talking about percentages. You're going, whoa, whoa. CORSI is super easy for most folks, Ray. CORSI is the sum of all shots taken. Okay,
Okay.
shots on goal, missed shots, block shots. If you take a shot, it goes into CORSI.
Okay.
And the idea is that a higher percentage number means you're in the offensive zone more, right? You're
Right.
probably getting better looks than a lower percentage. I mean
Okay.
that's kind of the really heart of the matter. And this is all at even strength, right? So if you look at a shot attempt differential, which is what CORSI is, if your CORSI is 70%, it means
Hmm.
that you are spending more or less like 70% of your time getting shots out there onto the opponent's net, which means they cannot be shooting on yours, right?
Right.
So CORSI is just a measure of all the shots taken,
Okay.
right, versus your opponents. So we're just looking at kind of a raw numbers game. That's all we're really talking about here. This is oversimplified maybe a little bit, but like I said, this is meant to be 2 minutes to just give you a basic understanding. In pairing with CORSI, there's something called a Fenwick. It's not used as much. It's the same
Okay.
thing, but it doesn't include blocked shots. The idea being that a shot that is not blocked, even if it misses, is better than a blocked shot.
Right.
So CORSI is you're just looking at all the shots taken, blocked misses and strengths at even strength.
Right.
Fenwick is you drop out block shots and you go with misses and goals. And that, sir, is
Wow.
2 minutes.
See there, and there it is. Now, one thing I've got to be honest with you, math was never my strong suit. And sometimes when you people talk about whether you judge the game with your eyes or you judge the game in the math and the analytics. There's a lot of people that they go into two camps.
Mhm.
More information is better. You know what I mean? So even though you don't always understand the analytics or the value of it and so forth, it's information that you can take in and process and decide how to make your team better, stronger. And so again, offensive opportunities. I mean, if you're spending 70% of the game in the offensive zone generating opportunities, you have better chances for scoring. It's good news all around. And hey, it keeps the heat off of Mr. Anderson and Ranta and LaFontaine.
There
And
you go.
yeah, I mean, that's what we want,
I
right?
The reason I like analytics, the reason I started with CORSI was, like I said, that's in kind of a little bit oversimplified version, but that's at its core. You're just looking at shots, regardless of where they're going. You're just
Yeah.
looking at shots versus the other team. And what I like about it is, I think baseball has become too analytical,
Yeah.
right? It's by the numbers, but I
Hmm.
think in hockey, I think most of us still look at a player, look at a game, and use the old eye test, right?
Yeah.
They played well, they didn't play well. I don't need to give you stats to look at the game last night and say they played poorly.
Yeah.
But especially if you're making an argument, or if you're trying to make comparisons between players, I think analytics is the way that we can talk to each other with references, right?
Yeah.
It gives us a common ground. If I can say this player is playing great, and
Hmm.
the eye test, I know I'm right, but it's nice to be able to give an analytical point that says not part of the reason I know I'm right is because I can look at his goals, above expected. I can look at his CORSI. I can look at his face-off percentages won. I can look at these things and give you numerics. And so Jordan Staal might be a good example. I still see people beat the dead horse about Staal not scoring a goal.
Uh,
I'm not worried. We have a plus 45 goal differential.
yeah.
If Staal doesn't score against the playoffs, I'm okay with that if we're winning games, and we
Yeah.
are. But you can look at him, you can click through his stats and go, okay, well, he's still winning face-off. He's still just an absolute beast on the penalty kill. And that's where analytics can tell you two people's eye test on somebody like Staal might be different because they're looking at different things.
Yeah.
But you can look at the analytics and say, well, what I care about is penalty kills, face-offs, even strength play. How is he defensively? That's all I care about. That's what I am looking at. That is my eye test versus somebody else who says he's playing terrible. And then go, well, I'm looking at that, but I also think, a third line center should be able to put in X many goals a year. And at least that
Right.
we may not agree, but I think analytics in that example helps give us a framework for why do we disagree? Why do we see the game differently?
Yeah. And here's the thing. There's no emotion in analytics. When you're looking at your eye test, right? You've got emotion tied to the player and stuff. You can look
Oh,
at it and
sure.
say, I love Svetch and stuff, and he's great, but sometimes, and you can when there's mistakes made on the ice, you're more willing to gloss it over if you like the guy or whatever. 90% of the time he's like, I mean, there's emotion tied to it. There's fandom tied to it, and you can see it and whatever. The analytics, the numbers are there. There's no emotion, there's no whatever. It's straight facts. It's straight
Yep.
facts.
And I like that, just not all the way. Like I said, don't
Yeah,
become
yeah,
baseball
yeah.
where the number said this guy's, at 80 pitches, you got to pull this guy if the guy's throwing a no hitter, right? If he's throwing a shot, you leave him
Oh,
in.
Blake
Conversely,
Snell.
you know, and we've seen that affect base. We've seen baseball teams lose World Series on that exact issue, right?
Blake Snell, that poor guy, never going to pitch for the Rays again because of what happened to him. On fire, just untouchable,
And
and
not
pulled
his fault.
because not his fault. It was unbelievable. So we don't want that sort of thing. You want to be
But
able
you're right.
to.
The analytics give you a grounding for this is factual, this is without context, And that's
Mhm.
where the eye test gives you the context that you need. But this is not, I love Andrei Svechnikov. He's playing great. This is Andrei Svechnikov is playing great because he has
This.
14 goals and 20 assists now. He's a plus 12. He's, throwing the body around like side note, Andrei Svechnikov is now the Russian Bull, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh,
I
look at
don't
that.
remember. I don't remember the movie, but I think it was a movie, and then he goes, "Oh, it's strong like bull," in Russian accent. I'm like, watching him lay out hits in both the Rangers and Devils games. I'm like, he is a bull in a china shop, just barreling
Yes.
through people, and he might get like he's going to probably get bigger and stronger.
Well, he's still young, which is just
He's a
mind
baby. He's younger
blowing.
than
Yeah,
LaFontaine.
yeah. Oh my God. So look, yeah, I mean, there it is. The analytics, nice additional information to uh, help back up the way you feel about your team and just provide you the information that you need when you're making decisions. Certainly, Rod looks at the numbers as well, but he's also using his eyes and he's got the experience as well. Speaking of experiences, some unfortunate experiences. And when I say unfortunate, I say downright terrible,
Yeah, putting it mildly, sir.
friggin' awful things that oddly enough, uh, Hurricane fans have direct experience of this type of incident happening to one of their own, something that I've never forgiven and will never forgive.
One of the
And
reasons you hate those who shall not be named.
those who shall not be named, we're dealing with racism in hockey, and a couple more incidents popped up this week. And I know this is a little off board for the Hurricanes, so to speak, but so important for us to address and speak out against. And again, we do have that tie. Again, bananas thrown at Kevin Weeks in Montreal. No, not every Hab fan is racist, but these types of things cannot be accepted. And the racism incidents in hockey now, it's kind of it's happening on the ice between players,
Twice in a week.
and twice in a week, and the chirping, like chirping is something in hockey that has always been, always will be, right?
Part
But
of the game, and usually not personal.
usually not personal. They're just trying to get under your skin. That's what they're trying to do. If you're thinking about them, you're not thinking about, getting the puck exited out of your end properly. You're too busy focused on trying to beat the crap out of the guy that just chirped you. But this is when it stems into racism. That's not chirping anymore. It's just straight racism.
Yeah.
And it's terrible. And it's terrible. And it's got to stop. And the incidents, I mean, uh, it was funny before the broadcast. He said, "Hey, did you hear about this?" So I'm like, "No, tell me about it." So like the one that happened, we were recording on Sunday. So what happened last night here in the ECHL? Is that correct? ECHL?
ECHL. Yep. So earlier in the week, Boko Imama, who plays in the AHL,
Yeah,
um, was a victim. The person who did it, I'm gonna have to pull his name up because I already I cared about the player
yeah.
who's the brunt
The
of it.
victim,
The
not
victim.
the.
Propik, I think is his
Yeah,
name, and he gets suspended for 30 days. And personally, not enough. 30 days. You make a. I mean, it's racism on the ice during the game, right?
yeah, and
With the Sharks, minor league affiliate, and it's like, okay, well, we're gonna give you 30 games. Okay, well, that's like half a season. That's not really a punishment. And then,
yeah. And did they also not? I mean, if I recall correctly, I mean, it's 30 games, and he's got to go through the training and the aspects of learning why what you did
right.
was wrong and all of the rest of it. It's sad that it really needs to come to that you have to teach someone that this is not
Well, not only that,
acceptable.
but
Like,
But how many people who hold those beliefs are going through that training and are going to get
Are
anything
going to
out of it?
actually take it in or believe it. Like they're
You
just,
know.
yeah, you're right.
So
You're right.
so I'm sorry. I thought he should have been suspended indefinitely. Thought he should have been dropped from the team immediately. And then yesterday, PK Subban, you love him or hate him. I think he's a fun guy to watch at All-Star games and things. Like he chirps, he seems super friendly and all. I don't like the way he slew foots people. His younger brother plays in the ECHL
Yeah.
and was the victim of an on-ice incident last night. And
Unbelievable.
it's bad enough the incidents happen, Ray. What really, just really burns me up is in reference to the Subban incident, people were tweeting about, oh, well, like some of his teammates left the bench to defend him. Those are game misconducts. And it's like, there's a racial on ice incident, and you're really bringing up that nobody who came off the bench should defend the player who was the victim of a racial attack
Yeah. Sorry.
was
You could hit me
penalized.
with, you could, yeah. Unbelievable.
Like, and that's really that's really what you care about, because
Missing the point.
in my mind, that's what you get out of it. Then you clearly don't have a problem with the racist incident. I mean,
That,
if you just forgo and go, well, what about the guys who came off the bench? You clearly aren't bothered by the fact that that happened in the first place,
yeah.
and
Like
that's a
for,
sad state.
yeah. I'd be taking a 5 game
Even on
suspension just
PK.
to jump off,
Oh,
the
sure,
bench. You jump off right away and you take care of that crap immediately and whatever. Like it just doesn't, it's just wrong. And if you don't stand up against it, you're willing to allow it to happen.
100%. And even on PK's Twitter timeline, people were like, oh, what, blah blah blah, Mr. Slewfoot, and all. It's like, again, you're worried about him slewfooting people, which is a dangerous issue, but that is a separate
It,
and completely secondary,
off topic.
tertiary thing compared to the very real, very major issue of two players in less than 2 weeks at an ECHL and an AHL level being the victims of racial abuse. And what's worse, Ray, how many do we not know about
Well,
because
that's
nobody was recording? And I'm not talking about ECHL and AHL. I'm talking about college. I'm talking about high school. I'm talking
junior.
about juniors.
It
I'm talking about
happens.
small. And like, you might have 10-year-olds out there. There are people out there doing and saying things they shouldn't, regardless of the
No
age.
question. You beat me to the punch. That was exactly what I was going to say. They caught two. You know damn well that it's happening far more than that. Far more than that. That's either not being reported or being called quote part of the game where again
I
they
lost my
say that
temper
it's
and said
yeah.
something racial. Does that sound familiar, Hurricanes fans?
Oh geez.
I'm too
Yeah.
competitive that I said something
Yeah. Sorry.
racial.
There's yeah.
Not an
So
excuse.
yes, not an excuse, not acceptable. We're certainly against this. We can hope that the punishments for those who were responsible, um, to me, it like you said earlier, just cut them,
Yeah,
and let them go. Like be gone. That's what you want. My what's It's really interesting the environment that we're in now, Brad, because right now, as much as I know, that doesn't happen all the time, I kind of fear that it's going to happen on my team. That one
yeah,
of my guys,
right.
that I love, that I support, that I whatever is going to do something silly, right? And
Yeah,
that's where we're at. We're no longer thinking about how, necessarily how great the players are, which we do all the time. We love them, we love their effort or whatever, but there's that underlying current where you just think, you know, someone's going to
right.
someone's going to
What
make
if?
that mistake. What if? And where are you going to be? And how are you going to support the team? Are you going to support that player? What if it's your favorite player? What do you do then?
Right.
It's one of those nervous feelings that you get now in the grand scheme of things.
We don't know these guys. I mean,
No.
as far as players, we don't know. Like Svechnikov is my favorite player. He seems like a great kid. I have not seen anything to show me otherwise.
Yeah.
But I don't know how he feels on things. Nobody, for the most part, knows how their favorite players feels about things because that's their private life, and we're not going to typically see that unless it comes out, and then it's too late, right?
Yeah.
Uh, my big thing is, and uh, the View from Center Ice podcast. Those ladies are excellent. I talked to them all on Twitter. They had basically the perfect take, which is why is this ECHL guy not just suspended indefinitely and banned from the team? It's not ECH. Not this is not to put down ECHL players.
Yeah.
But you can replace an ECHL player probably pretty easily because there
Yeah.
are thousands and
Lined up,
thousands of juniors and college players who could potentially fill that spot. I'm
ready to
sure you
go.
can find one to do it,
Yeah.
right? This should be a non-issue for a
It
team at
should
that
be.
level.
You're
I
right.
don't care if they're your best goal scorer. They're not that good if that's what they're bringing to the team and that's what your team is going to be known for now. It's not acceptable. We always go back and forth. Last night was Pride Night for the Devils. They had some really beautiful warm-up jerseys. I really would like actually one of those. They were gorgeous. And people were right. When corporations do that, it's the league says hockey is for everyone, but the league doesn't mean it. And my response was, that's true, but we as fans then need to pick up the banner
And
and
away you go.
force the NHL to mean it. You know what I mean? Like it's on
Yeah.
us. So we just want people to know, I what I said on Twitter was we're just two guys who are trying to be good allies to people, right?
Yep.
And that's whether it's a racial thing, it's an LGBTQA thing, if
Yep.
it's regardless. If we can help, tell us how. If we can do better, tell us how. We're willing to listen. We're willing to help. That's why we're talking about this for like half of this podcast
Yeah.
today. Half of this recording is going to be about this because this is what that is more important than beating the Devils or the Rangers, right?
I couldn't have said it better.
It's so.
Couldn't have said it better.
So I just I wanted to kind of wrap up with that because I mean one incident in a season is too many. Two incidents in a week is just it's
atrocious.
more appalling than I can put into words.
It's atrocious. It's atrocious. And again, that underlying statement that these were just the ones that were caught. And that's what needs to be remembered. The ones that were caught, because it's happening. It needs to stop. It just needs to stop.
Absolutely. And teams need to get serious about, I understand that legally they're going to go through the motions of, well, pending an investigation, blah, blah, blah. But that's all marketing.
Take a stand.
Right? The Kyle Beach Chicago Blackhawks press release was a marketing press release that had nothing to do with supporting Kyle Beach. It was purely a cover your butt kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And teams need to get away from that. And we as fans need to get them away from that by putting pressure on them. Write letters, make phone calls, not spend money, not go to games. There are plenty enough people who are not going to do those things, but we're not going to see empty arenas because of something like this. But could we get a few thousand people to not show up for a game or something? Yeah, I think that's tenable, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's what needs to happen.
Again, you're on fire. You're on fire today. I can't add anything to make that better or more poignant.
I don't know. I like you telling me I'm right.
You're always right, man, aren't you? Aren't you always right? Especially when it comes to putting the Bruins down. I mean,
that was we didn't talk about that. That was fun. I had warning flags flying from the front porch, and I've been wearing a hockey jersey instead of a hoodie out pretty much every day. It's
well done.
14 degrees, and I have my jersey over my hoodie to stay warm, just to remind my neighbors who won that game.
That a boy. That a boy. Well done. Very, very well done indeed.
So might get a ticked off Canes team on Tuesday, one that might be feeling a little embarrassed about how they played last night.
Well, that
And then
kind of
it's the
goes
Ottawa, and then a week from yesterday, we get another crack at the Devils.
nice. And you see, and that kind of goes back to what we said in the last podcast. Again, woe beest unto the team that faces the Hurricanes after they've been embarrassed, because they are not going to put that type of effort out 2 games in a row. So
Absolutely not.
Vegas Knights, we're coming for you.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad for y'all, honestly.
I kind of do too.
Not that bad, but I think we've done it, Ray. I think we've gotten through our list. I think we hit Rangers, we hit Devils, we talked LaFontaine, we talked about CORSI, we talked about the bigger issue than all of those, which is the 2 racial incidents in hockey, and we just, as fans, we have to do something about that. So
Yeah, not really much
the only
else
thing
to
left to
say.
say is
Go Canes.
go Canes. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey-related. You can reach us via email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.